Chickens. Hello. This is the best way to do a burger. You push in all the sides, right? And you make sure there is a little mound in the middle. And that way it doesn't become a big circle when you cook it. Put some salt on either side and then apply it to a medium heat pan. I'm learning how to cook on stainless steel pans. I did not think it would be a learning curve. So I got these really nice Scan Pan, pretty okay. First thing I do is put it on medium heat, I know that much. I added the oil while it was hot and it like exploded and now it looks like that. Still works, but tips on how to get that black off would be great. Because I really want to stick with it, because whilst it is annoying that the food does kind of stick a little bit easier compared to a normal Teflon pan. We're all probably going to find out someday soon that Teflon makes our dicks fall off or something, so it just seems like a better thing to do, and I'll just put up with the sticking and maybe end up working around it somehow. Hello there, this is a review of the Civivi Button Lock Elementum. Now, I am fairly sure I almost equate, in terms of relevant knives, to the Internet Explorer of knife review guys. I am not always particularly the cutting edge of what's new, and these have been getting around for ages now and everyone's sort of singing their praises, and I had to kind of get in there and see what the fuss was about. Button lock knives in general are usually not something that you get in the budget class of knife. That being said, arguable that this is any longer a budget knife. It was over 100 Australian dollars for me here, and I think even in America 60-ish dollars or so. So it just depends on what your budget barometer is. And before she starts yawping, I'm gonna let that dog in. Come on. Oi. Ada. Hello. You come in? Oh, yes you do. Go on then. Go on. You see the kitties? You see the kitties? You see the kitties? Kitties fucking hate her. So I'm going to keep this fairly brief. There is a lot of talk already about the Civivi Elementum, but I'm just going to give my hot takes of the things that I sort of feel about it after a few days of using it and just giving it a bit of a once over. I really like the knife. The first thing that struck me about the knife was, how much stuff you can shove into one of those little carry cases. Jeez, it almost exploded when I opened it. I just throw that stuff out, by the way. I'd have a room full of them if I didn't. So, maybe if you resell them, this might be worth keeping them. But as an aside, I do keep the silica packets though. I put them in my rice containers and my pasta containers in my cellar to stop them from getting damp from the humid air. So there you go. But anyway, those all go in the bin. But things that struck me, the first thing that I noticed when I started playing with the knife was how well it is ground. Hyperbolic statement, perhaps. It might be the best ground production knife I've ever had. Buck 110, they do a great hollow grind. Chris Reeve does a great hollow grind. This guy here, for $100 knife, is about as good as you could do. It is really nice and thin, even 2 to 3 millimeters above that terminating edge, which of course doesn't do much for durability, but you don't need durability in what is kind of a fancy lad EDC knife. Anyway, the pairing of both a really well done edge apex and a really well done hollow grind definitely elevates it above what sort of Buck do, and Buck is sort of my gold standard for an affordable good hollow grind, because Buck I generally have to resharpen myself, because I guess probably just because I'm a bit finicky, but often you get a bit of a bung edge with a Buck. This is done really well. It's done very mechanically, perfect. So the edge and the blade performance in general is exceptional. The steel is 14C28N, which is actually fine because it's presented to you in such a good way. This could almost be like a 400 series stainless steel. When it's put in a blade that's done this well, you'll get good mileage out of it simply from the geometry. It's the geometry that cuts in a grind like this. The steel supports it, of course, but this thing cuts like a kitchen knife. When I do my tubing test, I have this horrible vinyl tubing. It crushes down, it moves around, really nasty stuff to cut. This is probably one of the better out-of-box experiences I've had cutting that. Cutting fruit, vegetables, all that sort of stuff is just, yeah, it's beyond the reproach. And things like cardboard, double thick cardboard, you just pull it straight through it. The hollow grind on this is so well done. The edge apex won't last as long with the 14C28N steel, but that supporting geometry will definitely keep it moving through material, even in absence of a blindingly sharp absolute edge. So really well done grind, Civivi. My personal favorite grind for an EDC knife is the hollow grind, and this is probably my personal favorite hollow grind of all those. So yeah, it's high praise, but I think it is warranted. It is a very well ground knife. The general appearance of it, I find quite dull and quite sort of soulless a little bit. So that's something. It's kind of got an okay-ish looking. It does look a bit like a kind of like a generic G10-y, like a rat type knife, like a rat 1 type blade. You know, it's fine, I suppose. These aren't made to be like your treasure knife or anything like that. It's just made to be a good, fun, somewhat amusing, but in this case, very well performing everyday carrier. No worries at all, but it is quite dull to look at. So that's like a second point, you know, you take the good with the bad. And I don't particularly like how it looks. I think it just looks very neutral and very dull. The action is exceptionally well done as well. I mean, with a button lock, you can, because there is no detent really required. There's no liner locked. You need to like have constantly contacting the side of the blade tang as it's passing it. So with a button lock, it is basically just push the button and the knife releases entirely, and you give a bit of a wave up, which is good. Interestingly and coolly, I like how this button lock keeps it shut when it's shut as well, so I can't pull this open. There is no other way to open the knife apart from pushing the button lock, which my initial impression was that was slightly awkward, but that's just because I'm so used to thumb studs or flippers or whatever. So once I got the knack of, absolutely fine, but it did take like an hour or something, so there you go. But I do really like how in your pocket, this button lock will keep it shut as well, which is cool. It's not outside the realms of possibility that I guess you could push this against your leg or something like that, because the clip is obviously on this side. But even if that was the case, it'd probably just hit your pocket seam. But even still, it's a stiff enough button lock. You're not going to accidentally, like, I run my finger down it and it doesn't accidentally kind of go off. It's got a positive spring in there that you do need to push down to get the thing to actually open. So really happy with the lock, really happy with the grind. Not stoked on the appearance of the knife in general. I think it's quite dull. And I don't love this Civivi pocket clip. I think that's quite ugly. But again, these are things that probably don't really matter to me, but they might matter to you in terms of how things look and are. That being said, they do some different color types, and they do a fancy Damascus steel if you do want to jazz up your knife, but it is just a really basic utilitarian pattern. Just like the Rat one isn't a great looking knife, but it is a great knife. This is sort of the same, I suppose. The liners are skeletonized. You've got your stainless steel liners with some holes drilled out of them to keep it a bit lighter. The general carryability, dimensions, everything are really accommodating. I like that it's a nice skinny knife this way. Again, helped by having no thumb stud. The mechanism really does help it because there's no flipper on this side, no thumb stud on this side. They can be very, very lean going with the button lock format, so I really like that too. There are way more things I like about this knife than I don't. I would recommend it pretty strongly as a budget piece, but you probably already know that. You probably already have a Civivi Elementum in some shape or form, whether it's the flipper version or whether it's a thumb stud version or whatever. Very well done knife. I like it a whole bunch. And positive review.
I don't know what I'm doing.